when I reviewed this sort of cheap eBay Amazon handbrake a few weeks ago, one of the things I mentioned was that the force on the spring was a little bit weak for my liking, and that if you could find springs of the same dimensions, length and diameter, but that were of a higher rating, we'd be able to just swap it out for that upgraded spring and we'd have a much stronger feeling handbrake. And a lot of you said to me in the comments, Carl, would you mind making a video showing us how to do it? And the thing is, it's easy enough to do. Like, there's only 3 bolts you have to undo. But the biggest sort of question is, how do you know what spring to buy? Because we don't, unless you've got the tools to sort of measure the strength of the spring that's already in there, and then you go on a website and you look at springs by their rated pressure or poundage, whatever it might be, you're not going to know what you're getting. So I just thought, you know what, why not just take a punt, Carl, buy some springs that are the right dimensions and see what happens. So I measured my, this is the original spring. I measured this up and I found the nearest I could get was lengthwise. It's exactly the right diameter, but it's a touch shorter, as you can see. Now, I could have gone a touch longer. That was the 2 options. But when I removed this original spring, I noticed it was quite compressed in the handbrake. So I thought to myself, if I get one that's a little bit longer, and if you look, the coils are much closer together and much thicker on this spring. I thought if I get one of these that's slightly longer than this, then I think by the time it's compressed to get it in there, it might already be close to being spring bound or coil bound, meaning it can't compress any further. So I thought I'm going to go on the err on the side of caution and go slightly shorter, because worst case, I could put a couple of washers behind it to take up the space. Now, turns out, didn't need to do that. These springs fit perfectly. As I say, this original one was already quite compressed. So when you put this in, excuse me, croaky throat. When you put this in, there's no play to take up. It fits just snugly exactly as you want it to. There's even like probably a couple of mil of preload when you do up this back plate here. So that was great. What I actually bought was, obviously there'll be a link in the description to this. I bought 3, a red, a blue and a yellow, which is currently in the handbrake, and we'll take that out in a minute as I show you how to do it. So I think the blue was medium, like they were rated by just like strength, medium, light, medium, hard and extra hard or extra heavy, like medium heavy and extra heavy, something like that. So I thought, I don't want to get the light one because probably going to be too light. So I got the medium, which I think is the blue, the heavy, which I think is the red, and then the yellow, which was definitely the extra heavy. And I tried all 3, and for me, and I want to recommend to you guys as well, the yellow one, the very heavy one, or extra heavy, is the one to use. I bolted it back on the PlayStation, bolted it back on the play seat, and it doesn't move the play seat around. It's not stupid heavy, but it feels so much better. It's a similar sort of pressure to my HE one that I've got fitted over there. Obviously it's a spring rather than like a rubber spring, but it doesn't feel quite as fluid like. But the pressure, the resistance is getting on for what that is. Certainly if I use the white, I forgot what they're called now, Fibroflex springs is what my Huizenfeld engineering one uses, but they're basically a rubber that squishes rather than a coil spring. But yeah, so anyway, it's irrelevant. Yeah, the yellow one is the one I think is the perfect one. It's not too heavy. You're not going to be rocking your play seat about as you try and do those handbrake turns in Dirt Rally. But at the same time, it's not so soft that you can pull the handbrake with 2 fingers, you know, which is pretty much what it was before. So to change it out is really simple. You can see the yellow one in there at the moment. You could just undo this center bolt here, because if you do that, I may as well do it just to show you. If you do that, there's a 13 mil nut there just above that washer. if you hold that 13mm nut with your finger so it doesn't rotate round and just undo this, you can actually undo this all the way like this, slide it out like that, and then the washer that was on just the inside of this plate falls down. The spring itself you can pluck out, and then of course there is another washer. So basically the washers go either end of the spring, and then there is the 13mm nut is stuck to the magnet of the hall sensor. There we go. Let's get that out. So I'll show you how this all goes together, and now I've got grease on myself. I actually got round to lubricating the handbrake, and now it doesn't squeak. So how this all goes together through that back plate. So once you've gone through the back plate, you then have one washer, you then have your spring, you then have your other washer, so they sit in between like that, and then there was this 13mm nut which I'm cack-handedly putting on here. So that is the assembly when it's inside the handbrake, and then the thread on the end of this actually screws into the back of this piece here, and that's what the handbrake actually moves. So it's all really easy when you look at it. You can't really get it wrong. In fact, I'll try and show you I don't know if you'll see it, but there's a threaded hole just there, and that is what the end of that screws into. And that's where you can adjust your preload as well if you wanted to take up any slack in the handbrake. But yeah, that's the awkward way to do it. The easier way is you still have to unscrew this out of that block in the middle there, but if you undo the two bolts at the back here and just take the back plate off, then you've got access. Oh, there you go, you can see the hole that the bolt screws into there now. So yes, it makes it a lot easier obviously to do it that way. So let's whip this apart again, because now you can see how it all goes together. I may as well have just done this using the bloody plate in the first place, mightn't I? Wasting air time. So yeah, get your plate, that goes through there. One washer, yellow spring. So I'll link you to the eBay listing and you can choose which spring you want, but I really recommend going with the yellow one. I don't think anyone's going to get the yellow one and go, oh Carl, that's too heavy. Whereas you may well get the others, and whilst there's still an improvement over the standard spring, it could be better. So that is obviously how it all goes together. Piece of piss. Anyone can do that. You don't even need a spanner for this because you don't do it tight, obviously, because you'll just be compressing the spring, which would be pointless. So once you've done that, obviously you don't want to nip this up too tight, otherwise you won't be able to screw it into the handbrake itself. So just leave it a little loose for a second, in fact, so you can spin that. All right, we'll take up the slack once it's in there. And so then all you do is obviously put it back in here, screw it into the handbrake mechanism itself. And again, we just want to screw it in enough so that this plate is starting to sit flush with the back there. Get your bolts. I haven't missed any bits out, have I? No, they're all in there. And just screw these two back in, and that really is all there is to it when it comes to changing the spring. Couldn't be any easier. I like the fact that they've got a little rubber O-ring on the end here to stop it banging against the metal in operation. It's quite a nice little touch. Don't know whether I noticed that in the first video or not. But yeah, so now it's all back in and installed, and as I say, you can adjust that 13mm nut that's in there. You can adjust that using a 13mm spanner, like this, to take up any slack on the spring. I think for me, it's actually, I've just, by pure coincidence, put it in exactly the right spot, because there isn't any slack. So you do these two outer ones up tight. now with an Allen key, and I don't know whether I'm going to be able to. I mean, it's pretty tough now. It's quite hard to move. But that's exactly what you want, because once it's bolted to your play seat or your desk, in fact, desk users, I mean, these springs are about £6 each. So if you want to invest in a few and try different strengths yourself, then you can, because maybe if you're on a desk, you don't want one quite as strong as the yellow one. I haven't tried it because I don't have a desk clamp. But then, to be honest, if you're on a desk, you may as well leave the standard spring in, because what's the point? If you're going to make it stronger, your desk's only going to be wobblier, isn't it? So yeah, for cockpit users, even play seat challenge users, I recommend the yellow one. But that's all there is to it. Swaps in and out really easily. £6 each, I think they were, something like that. There'll be a link in the description. And now it's taken from what was a averagely good handbrake to something that feels way nicer. And again, if you make sure all your little bolts and everything are all slugged up so there's not much play in it, it really fits, and it's lubricated like mine is now, it really feels quite smooth, you know, and works perfectly for a cheap eBay Amazon handbrake. So there we go. Hopefully that's been helpful. Thank you. Oh, one thing just to mention before I go, actually. Don't forget, those of you that may not have seen the video, Sim Racing Studio are doing a Power Wind giveaway at the moment. There'll be details in the description of this video about how to enter that to win one of their Power Wind kits sent direct to your door completely for free. So have a little look down below. So thank you very much. As always, take it easy.